So just to remind you that what we want to do is we want to reduce the impact of climate change. And those impacts could be people dying, it could be economic damage, it could be the huge losses from damage, for example, by flooding to people's homes. It could be impacts on people's health from high temperatures or being ousted from their homes. It could be a drop in our food productivity because of the changing climate. All of those types of impacts, we want to reduce those. We're hearing positive noises about the pledges coming up to COP, meaning that we're potentially now on course to somewhere between 2 and 2.4 degrees. But those are pledges. We need to recognize that current policies could take us to as high as 3.9 degrees by the end of the century. And actually, of course, not all policies are implemented and not all policies work. So realistically, we are still looking at the end of the century, a range that we need to try and prepare for of somewhere between, at best, that Paris goal and at worst, potentially an average temperature rise of about 4 degrees. We mustn't think of 2 degrees as a risk. That's normal business for us. So our advice to everybody is plan for 2 degrees, but 4 degrees must be on your risk register. Really be honest about the real level of risk, recognize the uncertainty there is here.
Let's just start by saying that actually it's very clear, I think, to all of us that we're taking the planet into uncharted territory. We've not been here at least for 800,000 years and probably a lot longer than that. So how do we know what's going to happen to us? Well, we have to rely, obviously, on the very best climate science. And so much of what will happen to our little island depends very much on how the jet stream will vary in the future, or even vary today to give us unprecedented extremes. And what that means for the North Atlantic storm track and the nature of the storms or the blocking anticyclones that we experience.
I think from a risk management perspective, we have to recognise more and more that the risks affecting the UK are not just local flood risks and local heat risks, but they are the risks to disruption of our transport and food infrastructure that comes to us from overseas, the emergence of new diseases stimulated by climate change impacts on ecology, etc., etc. So thinking about risks, it's not just from a UK perspective, it's not just about what risks will impact us in the UK, but what risks will hit us that come from overseas and the interruption of our supply chains and so on.
We've got to make some really significant advances in climate science to underpin robust climate risk assessments across the world. And it's about predicting the future of precipitation and the global water cycle. And I think, we've been on this journey ever since I started in climate modelling in the 70s, trying to write the first convection cloud schemes, and it's time we recognise that actually something is not working and that we have to do something really quite different if we're actually going to provide the level of evidence, robust evidence, that allows us to take action to protect lives, livelihoods and the natural world.